Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking into the life of Jean Meyer.
Okay.
He's someone you might not know too much about, but he really had a huge impact on the world of Spiritism. You'll see what I mean as we go through all this.
Sounds good.
And for this one, we're going to be focusing on the portal Bliss Spirita. It's an online encyclopedia that has all sorts of information about the history of Spiritism. So let's just dive right in.
I think what's really interesting about Jean Meyer is he wasn't just someone who believed in this stuff. He really put his time and money where his mouth was.
So he wasn't just a believer.
Right.
He really shaped Spiritism as we know it.
Exactly.
So maybe we should start with his early life. I think I read that he was born in Switzerland
That's right.
back in 1855.
Yep.
And his family was pretty wealthy.
Oh, yeah. They were very well off.
So I imagine that gave him a lot of freedom to pursue his intellectual interests.
Absolutely.
I mean, being financially secure can make a huge difference,
It really can.
especially when you're trying to make a difference in a movement like Spiritism.
And this was especially important because at the time, the Spiritist movement in France, well, it was still kind of finding its feet after Allan Kardec passed away.
Oh, yeah, Kardec.
I mean, he's considered the father of Spiritism.
Right. Okay, now I know we have some listeners who might be new to all of this, so can you just give us like a quick overview of Spiritism?
Yeah, sure. So Spiritism is all about the idea that the spirits of people who have died, they can actually talk to us, the living.
Okay.
And it really emphasizes moral development and reincarnation and the idea that the spiritual and material worlds are all connected.
So it's about more than just ghosts or spirits talking to us.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole philosophy, a way of looking at life and death.
Fascinating. Okay, so back to Jean. He got interested in all these big questions, about life and death.
Yeah.
And eventually he discovered the writings of Kardec and Leon Denis.
Exactly. Denis was another big name in Spiritism. And here's something interesting. It seems that before he really got into Spiritism, Meyer was into occultism.
Really?
Yeah.
So he was exploring all sorts of things.
He was, and there's even some speculation that he might have used the name B. Nicolai as a pseudonym.
Wow, a secret identity.
Kind of. And he was supposedly editing a spiritualist magazine in Lyon under that name.
Interesting. What was the magazine about?
It was focused on something called metapsychics.
Metapsychics. That's not a term you hear every day.
I know, right? It's kind of like the study of paranormal stuff, but using scientific methods.
Okay, so like trying to prove things like telepathy or clairvoyance.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we have this kind of mysterious period in his life before he became a big supporter of Spiritism.
And he did become a huge supporter.
He did.
I mean, he put his money where his mouth was.
He really did. He wasn't content to just sit back and think about these ideas. He wanted to revitalize the whole movement, especially in France.
Okay, so how did he do that?
Well, one of the biggest things he did was buy the Review Spirit.
The Review Spirit, that sounds familiar.
It should. It was founded by Kardec himself.
Oh, wow. So it was like a really important publication.
It was, but it had kind of lost its way.
Okay.
But Meyer saw its potential and brought it back to life.
So he was kind of like a rescuer of Spiritist ideas.
In a way, yeah. He gave those ideas a platform.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
I mean, bringing back a publication like that.
It must have had a huge impact on the movement.
Yeah, because it gave all the leading thinkers a way to share their work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to reach a much wider audience.
It's like he understood the power of communication.
Definitely. And he didn't stop there.
What else did he do?
He also founded the Maison de Spirit.
The Maison de Spirit? What's that?
It means House of Spirits.
Literally a house.
Well, yeah, it was a building.
Okay.
It was the headquarters for the Review Spirit.
Oh, I see.
And it was a place where spiritists could meet and talk and hang out.
So he was creating a community.
Precisely. He knew that for a movement to thrive, people needed to be able to connect with each other.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does. But things weren't all smooth sailing within the French Spiritist movement at the time.
Oh, really? What was going on?
Well, there were all sorts of different groups and approaches. Some people focused on mediumship. Others were more interested in the philosophical side of things.
I see. So there wasn't a lot of unity?
Not really. And there were even debates about how to interpret Kardec's teachings.
Wow, so there was drama, even back then.
You could say that. And all this division actually led to an earlier attempt to create a unified French Spiritist union.
Oh, so they tried to bring everyone together.
They did, but it didn't last. It dissolved in 1891 because of all the infighting.
So it sounds like someone like Meyer was really needed.
Exactly. Someone with the passion and the resources to bring everyone together.
And it sounds like that's exactly what he tried to do.
You're right. In 1919, he spearheaded the reestablishment of the Union Spiritique Française.
Wow. So he's funding publications, creating gathering places, and trying to unite the movement.
That's our Jean Meyer.
He sounds like a pretty remarkable guy.
He was. And there's even more to his story.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about it after the break.
So before we go any further, I think it's worth talking about just how important that unification of the French Spiritist movement was.
Yeah. I mean, a movement can't really make progress if it's all over the place.
Exactly. Imagine being a Spiritist back then in France. You're excited about these ideas, but everyone has a different take on Kardec's teachings.
Right. It could be confusing.
It would be, discouraging even.
But when the movement is unified...
It has a much stronger voice.
Right, and it can actually grow and have an impact.
Exactly. So Meyer saw this need for unity, and he stepped up.
Okay, but we were also about to talk about his efforts to bring science into the mix.
Right. That was a big part of what he did.
Tell me more about that.
Well, he wasn't happy with Spiritism just being seen as a belief system.
So he wanted more than just faith.
He did. He wanted to explore those Spiritist phenomena in a scientific way.
Okay, and that's where the International Metapsychics Institute comes in.
Exactly. The Institut Metapsychique International.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It is. And it's a really important part of Meyer's legacy.
Can you remind me what metapsychics is again?
Sure. It's basically the study of paranormal phenomena, but using scientific methods.
So they're trying to prove things like telepathy.
Yeah, or clairvoyance.
Things like that.
Exactly. Instead of just accepting these stories at face value, they're trying to study them systematically.
I see. So like doing experiments and collecting data.
That's the idea.
And Meyer believed this was important for understanding the spiritual world.
He did. He even called metapsychics the science of the future.
Wow. The science of the future. That's pretty bold.
It is. And it shows how forward-thinking he was.
It really does.
He believed that science and spirituality weren't enemies, but two sides of the same coin.
I think that's an idea that's gaining more traction these days.
I agree.
People are starting to see the connections between science and spirituality.
Yeah, and Meyer was ahead of his time in that sense.
It makes you wonder what else he might have been right about.
It does, but unfortunately, our sources don't really go into detail about his personal views on the potential conflicts between scientific inquiry and spiritual belief.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to know more about that.
It would. But we do know that he was deeply devoted to both Spiritism and science. And he saw them as ultimately leading to a deeper understanding of what he called the work of God.
Okay, so we've talked about Meyer's work in France with the Revue Spirit and the Maison de Spirit.
And the French Spiritist Union.
Right, he was really trying to unify the movement there.
He was, but he wasn't just focused on France.
Really?
No. He had a much broader vision of spiritual unity.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
He believed that all the different spiritual paths out there, they could all learn from each other and eventually come together.
That's a pretty ambitious goal.
It is.
Especially considering all the different religions and spiritual traditions in the world.
I know, but that was Meyer. He thought big.
And did his actions match his words?
Oh, yeah. He didn't just talk about it. He actually attended spiritualist gatherings all over the place.
Like where?
Well, he went to congresses in Paris and London, and even The Hague.
So he was networking with people from all sorts of backgrounds.
He was building bridges between different communities.
That's amazing. And are there any collaborations that stand out?
Well, there's one that you might find interesting.
Don't we?
He worked with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Wait, the Sherlock Holmes guy?
The one and only.
Wow, that's a pretty big name.
It is. It just goes to show that Meyer wasn't afraid to reach out to anyone who shared his interest in the spiritual realm.
So he didn't care about labels or categories.
Not really.
He just wanted to connect with people who are on a similar journey.
Exactly.
And I think that's a really important lesson for all of us.
I agree.
It's so easy to get caught up in our own little bubbles. But there's so much we can learn from each other.
Especially when we're open to different perspectives.
Right. But it's also important to remember that behind all these accomplishments and grand visions, there was a real person, a human being named Jean Meyer.
That's a good point.
I'm curious to learn more about him.
About his character and what motivated him?
Let's dive into that.
Okay.
Welcome back to our deep dive. And now we're going to learn about Jean Meyer, the person. So not just his accomplishments, But what was he like?
Well, one thing that stands out is that he wasn't just a distant benefactor, writing checks from afar.
Right.
He was actually really involved in running the Review Spirit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he even served as its director for a while.
So he was a hands-on kind of guy.
He was. He really wanted to shape the direction of the publication and of the Spiritist movement itself.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, if you're passionate about something,
Yeah.
you want to be involved in every aspect of it.
Right. And there are also stories that show how his generosity went beyond just Spiritism.
Oh, like what?
Well, one source mentions how he supported an orphanage in Lyon.
An orphanage?
Yeah.
So he was helping people in need?
It wasn't about promoting Spiritism or anything. It was just about helping others.
That's really nice to hear.
It is. It shows his humanitarian side.
Yeah, it shows he cared about people.
And there's a tribute that was published after he passed away in the review Métaphysique.
Okay.
And they describe him as being very stoic and resilient.
Especially when he was sick.
Exactly.
So even when things were tough, he didn't give up.
He didn't. He faced his challenges with grace and dignity.
It's inspiring.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the life of Jean Meyer, what are some takeaways we can apply to our own lives?
Yeah, I think one big lesson is that we can all make a difference, even if we're not famous or powerful.
Right. Meyer wasn't a world leader or anything, but he made a huge impact on Spiritism.
Just through his passion and dedication.
Exactly. So we don't have to have fancy titles to make a difference.
And his story also shows the importance of community. He didn't work alone.
No, he brought people together. He built bridges.
And I think that's something we can all learn from, whether we're involved in social causes or spiritual pursuits. Connecting with others can make all the difference.
And finally, I think Meyer's search for harmony between science and spirituality is something that's really relevant today.
Definitely.
In a world where information is everywhere, it's important to look for a holistic understanding of things.
To see the bigger picture.
Right. To embrace both reason and intuition.
So we started this deep dive asking if Jean Meyer was an unsung hero. And I think it's safe to say that he was...
He was a visionary leader.
A generous philanthropist.
A bridge builder between worlds.
And most importantly, a man who lived his values.
It's been great exploring this fascinating chapter of Spiritist history with you.
And we hope it's inspired you to learn more about Spiritism, or maybe just to think about how you can contribute to a better world.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that's sure to fascinate and inform.
Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep seeking those connections that make life richer.
And the world a brighter place.